मिटिङमा
निश्चल सर म्युट जस्तो छ सरको।
ए होइन, म यहाँ फोनमा कुरा गरिरहेको थिएँ। अमनले के अलिनालाई लिङ्क भएन भनेको हो?
ए हजुर पठाएको थिएँ चलेन भन्दै थियो एकैछिनमा
यो
सोध्छु।
पर्सनलाइज लिङ्क हो के? सो एकचोटि एकछिन है त। हेलेन, क्यान यु हियर मी? अब एलिना तिमीहरू सँगै गरे भए हुन्थ्यो, फेरि ऊ कहाँ छ त? पर्सनलाइज लिङ्क मात्रै पठायो क्या उनीहरूले। अब आज तपाईँले पनि रिप्रेजेन्ट गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ पर्यो भने है। क्वेसन्सहरू हेर्नु भएको थियो नि, अनि डोन्ट वरी होइन, तपाईँले नेपालीमा बोल्दा भयो, इन्टरप्रिटेसन छ। अनिशजी हुनुहुन्छ यहाँ इङ्ग्लिस च्यानलमा, तपाईँले त्यतिकै अनम्युट गरेर बोल्दाखेरि इङ्ग्लिस च्यानलमा तपाईँको ट्रान्सलेटेड भर्जन गइरहेको हुन्छ। सो है, नेपालीमै कुरा गर्दा पनि हुन्छ इफ यु फिल कम्फर्टेबल। Okay, who else is remaining? Aman, Dheeraj is here, Shailaja is here, Thunlam is here, Bhavana and Shreya. Live stream ko link सबैजनालाई आएको छ YouTube को, please share so that we can all promote it है। कीर्ति सर, हाम्रो KU को Facebook मा पनि पोस्ट गर्न मिल्थ्यो कि? तपाईसँग एक्सेस छ?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
We're good.
Oh, I see Helen.
You're not at the space?
No, I'm not. It's about 2.5 hour journey. It's about 2.5 hour journey from where I stay to Glasgow. So no, I'm still here in Aberdeen. Looking fabulous. I can see us on Inga's laptop. And I take it you didn't make it over to Glasgow either then?
Oh, sorry, you were asking me. No, I didn't. It was so unclear. I think we could have sent more people, but just a second, Lynn. Sorry, Lynn. Yeah, so we're so unclear about whether people get to travel or not, and etc. So we managed to only send in one delegate.
Oh wow! I thought,
and they were a youth delegate, like, so they're a climate change advocate. We didn't get to send anyone creative, but we had so much content at COP this year from Nepal. So we're able to make a lot of noise, and thanks to this panel as well, which is a great icing on the cake.
It is, yeah. I'm so impressed that Inga and Helen managed to pull this off. Hi, Shailaja. It's nice to see all my yawning yaks again. Once a yak, always a yak.
Same here. So nice to see everybody. Hello, everyone.
Lynn, do you want to put in your full name and maybe Preena as well? I should maybe put in British Council.
Right.
Yeah, I did.
You can also put in KU next to your name if you want to. That would be, I think, really helpful. And Aman as well, Dheeraj as well. You can put your project names on the side of your name. That might be really helpful. Hi, Bhavana. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so Just a second. हजुर सवाल त तपाई होइन यो पर्सनलाइज लिंक मात्रै थियो तपाईलाई गयो होला हैन त्यो एक्चुअली पर्सनलाइज लिंक तपाईको इमेलमा आछ होला किनभने तपाईको इमेल हाम्रो उयोमा थियो हैन त्यही नै पठादियौं त्यसमा आछ होला तपाईलाई आको हुनुपर्ने एक्चुअली त्यो हेरेर लिंक र पासकोड पठाइदिनु अनि त्यही लिंकले काम गर्नुपर्ने हो जस्तो लाग्छ एक्चुअली ट्राई गर्नु हुन्छ मैले फरवर्ड त सबै फरवर्ड गर्दै थिएँ खै दिले भेटाउनु भने के हो एक्चुअली हेर्नु न तपाईलाई त्यो एउटा लिंक त आको हुनुपर्ने हो तपाईको इमेल एड्रेस थियो होला त्यो मिल्छ मिल्दैन म एक्चुअली यहाँ चेक गरिहाल्छु है कसैले हामीलाई श्रेयाको मलाई इमेल एड्रेस चाहिँ पठाइदिराख्नु न हुन्छ म तुरुन्तै यसमा पठाइदिन्छु त्यहाँ पनि पठाइदिनु न हस् हुन्छ फरवर्ड गरेर हजुर हुन्छ Inga, can you hear us? Is there a chance to, could we possibly send a panelist link to someone? Because I think we sent it to Soharda and Shreya is the one who's speaking. Dishab, can you put in your full name and maybe add KU to the end?
Namaste, Lynn.
Namaste, Kipti. Hi, Prina.
Hello.
Oh, Hunty Chef. Sorry, I went off Zoom for a moment to look at PowerPoint and didn't see everyone arriving. How exciting. Nishal, did you see the question in the chat about whether we have any slides to share?
Feels like what they've been working on. So glad to have you all here and to listen to this really interesting project.
Hello everybody and welcome to all of you in this room today and all of you who are joining us live from hopefully all over the world to watch and listen to what we've got to tell you. So welcome to Glasgow, Nepal. It's been a very long road to COP26, which is the name of this very project, and we had of course hoped to be able to welcome you here in person, but alas, as we know, that wasn't possible. So welcome in digital form to our venue here at COP26 in Glasgow. So very briefly, we're going to introduce you to what this project is about. Then I'm going to hand over to Nishal, who's going to explain the British Council's involvement in this project and the instigator of this project. And then Applied Arts Scotland, who are the partner in this project as well. We also have Helen here today. So Helen and Lynn have both been the project leads for Applied Arts Scotland at the Road to COP26 Innovation Programme. Inga van Niels from Edinburgh Napier University, and together we delivered, together with the British Council and our partners at Kathmandu University in Nepal, who are also somewhere in the Zoom room, the innovation program back in spring last year. So what we're presenting here today is the end of the innovation program, where 6 young entrepreneurs were granted money to develop their nature-inspired making. But first of all, I wanted to maybe introduce you to the kind of context in which we framed this project. So Fergus, if you could have the next slide, please. So as you all know, we're here in Glasgow because the whole world is watching Glasgow at the moment because of COP26. And hopefully our politicians are making some very sensible decisions about how to basically safeguard the planet and human habitation for the future going forward. So what this means is that the science is informing the way in which nations make decisions and laws and policies, and that in turn then affects how businesses will have to run their practices. And that's in a way what we're talking about today. So we'll have, it will no longer be business as usual. There will be new laws and regulations to hopefully that we need to adhere to in order to remain under the 1.5 degrees of heating. Next. Thank you. So the 2 models in which we framed the innovation program was to look at 2 things. And one is the circular economy model. And really what that means is, rather than looking at a linear model, which is what most of our economic activities are built on, is to look at a circular model where we think about where our materials come from, we think how they can be repurposed and redesigned and recycled, and basically be useful throughout the entire life of their physical existence. So the circular economy model looks really to a great extent to how materials exist in the world and how we can make the most use of them. But beyond that, we also wanted to look at how do our products and services that we bring into our economy, how do they impact beyond not just their materials presence, but how do they also impact community? And this is where the donut model became really useful, because the donut model basically looks at the fact that we have to live as human society and as economic models, we have to operate within the environmental limits of our ecosystems, and also we have to make it fit in that safe space that supports the social foundation. So that means that you pay people well, that you don't have slave labor, you don't exploit children, you know, etc., etc. I'm saying that to you guys in the room. So it's making sure that the economic models that we provide and that we operate on are respectful of human life and non-human life and other ecosystems, basically. So that's, in a very brief nutshell, the kind of context in which we asked our young entrepreneurs to develop new businesses and new products and services that would basically be climate ready. And finally, so that meant that no longer we're looking at, you know, how profitable can your business be? And what is the purpose of your business, and can it be profitable? So it has to be sustainable in a financial way, but it also has to be sustainable for its people that it deals with, for the planet, and it has to also, to some extent, be respectful of the place in which it originates. So that's the 5 P's in which we work. So there has to be a purposeful business, they have to pay attention to the profit bottom line, the people bottom line, the planet, and place. So that was really our nutshell. Helen, have you got anything to add to that?
All I was going to say is that I work with Apply.Scotland, which Lynn is going to tell you more about shortly, but it was just really to say that we work with people who make things. So we've got potters, we've got weavers, we've got knitters, we've got blacksmiths, you know, people who are in, you know, kind of embedded in place, and they're all in Scotland, the people that, you know, are members of our organisation. So actually the people, planet, purpose, profit and place that Inga talked about is very fundamental to the people we work with. So it's been great to work with the entrepreneurs in Nepal to learn, you know, kind of from them about what the similarities and differences are, and to really use craft and making as something that we can bring to the table around climate change and climate, you know, addressing climate change and addressing climate resilience. So that's all I was going to say.
Thank you. That was fabulous. I'm going to hand over to Nishal now from the British Council in Nepal, who's going to put it this side, of course. So welcome, Nishal, to Glasgow.
Hi, thank you for hosting us. Quite exciting. So,
We can't hear you, Nishal. Just bear with us. Live performance.
Can I be audible? Am I audible now? Yeah, great. I was just saying thank you for hosting us all the way, from Nepal, and great to be here to give a brief background on the project. So we started way earlier than any other British Council sort of country office with our COP26 campaign. That owes itself to our government's decision to do a regional dialogue ahead of COP26 before the pandemic hit. So we had actually started out thinking about what we wanted to do as a cultural relations organization in COP, or to support COP's agenda. And thank you, Helen, for literally hosting me, giving me a platform. So yes, and so we got funded through the embassy, to promote UK government's interests, and then we were supporting Nepal government's interests. And where we sort of honed down on was the agenda of inclusivity. And one thing that with climate change, that is very apparent in Nepal as well. It becomes a very technical thing where only engineers, technocrats, people in the private sector, the usual suspects are involved in climate dialogue as well as action. And we thought we needed to change that. The inclusivity agenda was already there, but what we thought was important was to look at our mission as a cultural relations organization and look at how creative sectors and creative actions could support climate resilience in Nepal. And one thing we knew in terms of context is in Nepal, craft traditions are a big vehicle for the development partners of this country to use to enable marginalized people, to give them economic assistance as well as resilience to climate change by protecting their livelihoods. And so we thought, that was a natural avenue for us to explore innovation in climate change. And so we decided, besides gender and working with youth, that we'd have an innovation grant program focusing on nature-based craft. And initially there was a lot of challenge because our funders were like, craft, but how? And we said, no, we don't have the expertise, but I think we can find a good UK counterpart who can really help us with the expertise. And we do know projects that are happening on the ground that are thinking about craft in the expanded practice, because here in Nepal we have this very terrible word. We use handicraft to talk about all craft, and that immediately conjures object in mind, right? When we say handicraft, but craft is, is very expansive. And we thought through this effort, we can both explore how it can become a central theme to a wider purpose-led business and really answer market dynamics, as well address market dynamics to create more sustainable, sustained solutions, really. So our background is that we received a lot of challenge when we started thinking about this, but we got a lot of energy from working with Applied Arts Scotland and Inga for you from ENU. And I remember those original conversations that we had about what we wanted to do. And I remember how much those conversations were a learning moment for, I think, us on on our side, and I think KU colleagues will also attest to this. And when the quadruple bottom line, which now is quintuple bottom line for us, when we started thinking about that and that word purpose, when that came up, it really made a lot of sense to us. Not because there were these excellent projects happening on the ground, but we also saw this fallacy. So we saw a lot of projects that were craft based on a social enterprise, really marketing the stories of women that they work with and using a lot of social sort of narratives to position their products. And what we found was missing was when you have the people that you work with become a marketing asset. It strays a lot away from the purpose of trickling down all the benefits of the business to them. So the quintuple bottom line made a lot of sense, and I think we've moved forward with that. We have 6 wonderful projects that have been working on their products, their ambitions, and they'll share their thoughts on their own projects and explain what they're doing. But yeah, that is how we got our start. We really wanted to change the conversation about climate action by bringing in the creative sector, and which is predominantly informal in Nepal. So it was also about thinking about informal innovation. So when we say innovation, again, it goes to engineering, to technical subject sciences. But for climate change to take a more sustainable route to real climate action, we need to consider all different socioeconomic, sociocultural barriers. And I think this was an effort to really get to that.
Many, who's the very brand new chair of Applied Arts Scotland, who will introduce the role that Applied Arts Scotland played and its history that it has, and provenance, if you like, of working with the British Council all over the world. So over to you, Lynn.
Hi, thanks Inga, and thanks everyone who's been involved with organising today. It's an absolute delight to be parachuting into Glasgow all the way from up here in sunny Aberdeen. So Applied Arts Scotland, we are a membership-based organisation that are led by makers for makers, with our goal of really nurturing the creative heart and soul of making practice. We have a real interest in making sustainable livelihoods. That's kind of what underpins everything that we're doing. And we're thinking about that in sustainability in its widest sense. So thinking about that from the materials and the processes that we use, how people are involved with those processes, and also how we can give longevity to those processes, how makers are able to sustain themselves and their own livelihoods through the actions that they take. We've been working with the British Council as part of the Crafting Futures programme now for a number of years in a number of countries around the world. And Nepal is one of the more recent countries that we started working with, and it's been really lovely to widen out our partnerships to include academic colleagues here in the UK as well as in Nepal, and help to develop the innovation programme where we mentored 50 different young Nepal entrepreneurs who all came into the programme with their own ideas about what was important for their local communities, who hopefully addressed gaps in terms of creating objects, delivering services, and we really helped them to kind of shape those ideas through the lens of the quintuple bottom line that Inga has mentioned. This is something that we've been working on at Applied Arts Scotland with Inga in partnership with Creative Informatics through a Closing the Loop programme, where we've had a series of makers who have thought really in depth about their processes, their ways of working, the materials that they work with. And we were able to take some of the learning from those Scottish makers and bring it into that innovation programme, and also carry that forwards as we've been working on mentoring the 6 grantees that you're going to hear from shortly. So those ideas about craft as objects, as service, as experience, of ways that we can use craft to promote more thoughtful ways of engaging with our communities, and using it as a way to promote conversations about how we can become resilient to climate change, how we can promote sustainable actions within our day-to-day lives, has been really fundamental to the collaboration that we've had as part of this programme. And with that, I'm going to stop talking so that we can hear much more from all of the grantees and their really wonderful work that they've been doing as part of this programme.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for that. And thank you also for the plug for the Closing the Loop Pecha Kucha Pachacha, which will happen in this very venue at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So do tune in for that on YouTube. I also want to say a massive thank you to our colleagues at Kathmandu University who have been really our ears and eyes on the ground, and have been absolute incredible partners for us to work on this project with the grantees. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce you to the 6 winning, so from those 50, we selected 6 young entrepreneurs that were funded to develop their ideas. And we're going to show you a very short film of about 5 minutes length. In their own words, we'll introduce you to their products and services. And after the short film, we will have a panel discussion with them live here in the room via Zoom. So yes, I'd like to hand over to the short film, and we'll see you after the short film for our live discussion. And before we go, we'd like to say a very big thank you to our very patient and quiet young audience who are going to be the young entrepreneurs of the future, as we hope. So thank you for joining us today.
Hi Inga, can I just interrupt for a second because we can't hear you guys talking just now. The room is muted. But unfortunately the film didn't play on the YouTube live and we couldn't hear any of the audio either. I wonder if there's a way we could really quickly fix that and replay the film.
Can we?
I'm not sure why that's not. We'll try playing it again with the audio. Well, give me 2 seconds.
I would also like to introduce Lynn and Helen were both together with the Kathmandu colleagues that you might have seen on the short film at the end, were the mentors for the young businesses. So that was an important aspect of the program too. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to myself.
No. We got a great reception in the room. Yeah. And I think that's the first time I've seen it, and actually it was really nice the way it was edited with everyone just smiling at the end. But at the same time, it's like, like when you're doing filming, you kind of, there's always that nervous laughter. But I do genuinely think it's been a joyous project for all the entrepreneurs.
That was a 3-minute edit of basically what was a 5-hour meeting. It's quite an achievement to edit that together. Yeah. I don't know if just broadcast that to the world.
So I think the problem that we have is just because of the feeds of where the different feeds are coming from. So if we can't play the video, so because we're playing it so you can see it in the room, that's why it's not on YouTube.
Well, we've already seen it, so we don't need to see it again.
Yeah. So I think the only thing that we could do for the people that are on Zoom is audio, unless they upload the video separately later.
Yeah, okay.
Can we share it in the Zoom webinar just now? I think
that's it. Yeah, we'll do that. Just now,
and you'll just wait.
Yeah. Well, this should be it. Sharing in the Zoom webinar.
Thank you. Can they hear Tell me very briefly about your business in your own words.
There are around 15.5 million menstruating person in Nepal, and they are producing around 18.9 million ton of menstrual waste. These menstrual waste take 600 to 800 years to degrade. We felt like a big push is required to promote green production and consumption.
हाम्रो औजारको मोटिभ चाहिँ अब ह्यान्डलुमहरुमा वर्क गरेर र त्यसबाट अब क्राफ्टम्यानहरुलाई पनि अपलिफ्टमेन्ट हुने हिसाबमा र मार्जिनलाइज वुमेनहरुलाई पनि स्वरोजगार हुन सक्नुहोस् भन्ने मोटिभका साथ हामी यसमा अगाडि बढिरहेका छौं.
So our business is called Tinlam. Tinlam in Tibetan means collaboration and harmony. So at core, our business is about long-term collaboration with the nomadic herders of Afghanistan, also known as Jopas.
TAO is basically, like simply put, it's a system designed to bring local yogurt makers with the consumers in a more ethical and sustainable way.
Dying tradition रिभाइभ गर्नलाई चाहिँ यो ब्याम्बो क्राफ्ट फेरि मार्केटमा ल्याउन खोजेको जुन मोर सस्टेनेबल पनि हुनेछ र सबै नेचर बेस्ड हुन्छ.
It's very important to produce toys within the country by utilizing local resources and working with local craftsmen.
If you could tell us briefly where the materials come from.
So in Nepal there is a lot of community forest managed by farmers and local people. At a larger scale I can work with these community to resource woods from community forests.
Currently we are using bamboo by
Oh, this is sorted. Oh, dear God.
One more time.
Okay, yes.
What would Kirsty Walk do?
Yeah.
Huh?
It's definitely worth the wait.
Thanks, Lynn. Keep saying that.
It is the most excellent film. And it's definitely worth watching twice for those of you in the room.
Yeah, we're quite happy. I'm just, conscious that you guys might have been staring at a blank, silent screen for 10 minutes.
Okay, this was working last time. Let's do it.
Tell me very briefly about your business in your own words.
There are around 15.5 million menstruating person in Nepal, and they are producing around 18.9 million ton of menstrual waste. These menstrual waste take 600 to 800 years to degrade. We felt like a big push is required to promote green production and consumption.
हाम्रो औजारको मोटिभ चाहिँ अब ह्यान्डलुमहरुमा वर्क गरेर र त्यसबाट अब क्राफ्टम्यानहरुलाई पनि के अपलिफ्टमेन्ट हुने हिसाबमा र मार्जिनलाइज वुमेनहरुलाई पनि स्वरोजगार हुन सक्नुहोस् भन्ने मोटिभका साथ हामी यसमा अगाडि बढिरहेका छौं.
So our business is called Thunlam. Thunlam in Tibetan means collaboration and harmony. So at core, our business is about long-term collaboration with the nomadic herders of Upper Mustang, also known as Dropas.
Tao is basically, like simply put, it's a system designed to bring local yogurt makers with the consumers in a more ethical and sustainable way.
Dying ट्रेडिसनहरूलाई रिभाइभ गर्नलाई चाहिँ यो ब्याम्बो क्राफ्ट फेरि मार्केटमा ल्याउन खोजेको जुन मोर सस्टेनेबल पनि हुनेछ र सबै नेचर बेस्ड हुन्छ.
It's very important to produce toys within the country by utilizing local resources and working with local craftsmen.
If you could tell us briefly where the materials come from.
So in Nepal there is a lot of community forest managed by farmers and local people. At a larger scale I can work with these community to resource woods from community forests.
Currently we are using bamboo by the neighboring communities.
So there's like 4 communities of craft artisans who work together to bring this one product to life. It's about the pottery makers, it's about the weavers, it's about the people who make the lid, and another is the yogurt makers themselves.
We are partnering with Dropas to create utilitarian and global products from trimmed yak hair.
हामीले युज हुने मटेरियलहरु सोर्स गर्नलाई चाहिँ अपसाइकल गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ हैन. अब अपसाइकल गर्दाखेरि अब फर्निचर्सहरु कलेक्ट गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब हामीले डिफरेंट वेस्ट हाउसेसहरुसँग हामीले कोल्याबोरेट गरिसकेका छौं.
Once the banana tree is planted, after it gives out fruit, generally it is cut down because it is an agro waste. We are buying the agro waste from the farmers, so the local community people get benefited out of it.
People are going towards plastic packaging. I think that's where this whole conception of this, how it came to my mind, that craft artisans are losing their jobs. There's like single-use plastic culture is increasing in the community itself, and that was when this solution actually came. If you can only bring that people back to this idea of reusing, then I think that will be the greatest value to us.
Now we are in the weaving process. So we'll be doing rugs for now, and next would be furnitures. We are listening more than we are telling them what to do. We are partners rather than buyers and sellers. materials. So we will be sourcing the materials from them, but we'll also be giving them the job of making it into a yarn and even the finished product.
प्रॉफिट चाहिँ मेन आउने भनेको प्रत्येक युनिट बेचेपछि मसिन त्यसको थ्रुबाट आउँछ प्रॉफिट चाहिँ सबैले आफ्नो पोइन्ट अफ भ्यूबाट ग्यादर गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ सबैलाई विन विन सिचुएसन क्रिएट गर्ने मोटिभको साथ चाहिँ अगाडि बढ्ने छौं
While we set up factories or set up operation in their communities, the women in the local group are also getting employment. So they are actually encouraging this process. We are giving work to the people who is already existing there, and we are utilizing their own resources and converting it into a product which will be benefiting for them.
Our traditional आर्टहरु सबै उनीहरुको टेक्निकहरु राखेर अब जस्तो वीविङ टेक्निकहरु राखेर चाहिँ अब त्यसलाई चाहिँ कसरी चाहिँ रिभाइभ गरेर चाहिँ नयाँ मोडर्न फर्ममा लिएर आएर चाहिँ जान लागेको एउटा ट्रेडिसनलाई चाहिँ मार्केटमा कसरी प्रेजेन्ट गर्न सकिन्छ भनेर हामीले त्यो प्रोजेक्टमा काम गरिरहेछौं
What we would like to do is replace plastic, create alternative choice for the consumers. They can make responsible choices regarding our planet.
सबै प्रोजेक्टहरुमा चाहिँ उहाँहरुको चाहिँ अब उहाँहरुले आफ्नो आइडेन्टिटीको कुराहरु चाहिँ नि अगाडि चाहिँ आउँछन् यसमा.
Having this stretch of time for the mentorship period has also allowed them to reflect on all of the processes that they're doing and identify what they need to do next.
The time that we have with mentorship and incubation program, what they also thought about is the product, not just about the product, and they also thought about what is the adding value, because we cannot just say, okay, this is good for climate, this is good for people, this is good for environment. We have to make the product sell. So there should be a value added to it. So this led them to rethink what is it that we need to add value that people will see benefit, not just for the planet, not just for the environment, but as a whole for themselves as an individual as well.
Second time lucky, I hope. So I don't know if we have Nepal and Aberdeen back in the room.
We do indeed. That was a wonderful film. Definitely worth persevering for everyone to be able to see it.
Thank you. Do we have Nepal back in the room as well?
We have lots of Nepal back in the room.
Okay, great. We might have to put them on the thing in a minute. So anyway, we'd like to bring our grantees into the room and have really a discussion with ourselves, and we'll open up to questions from the room as well. So we also have a Nepali interpreter on hand in case things get lost in translation. So yeah, we'd like to just start maybe with Helen's prepared some excellent questions here, because she's good that way. Pyeong Gaon, we wanted to ask you a particular question. So your project sought to create a market for your particular material, which is the bamboo. That's right. Which is the bamboo products, and this amazing material and tradition that has existed for a long time. And what did you find? What did you find that when working with the community, what worked and what didn't work, and how did you strike that balance between making a profit and then having to think about those other bottom lines, if you like?
Namaste. My name is Elena Mananda from Team Pangao. Thank you for the question. Our project Pang is about Pangao's disappearing bamboo craft tradition. Articles like Pangao will stop making pangs, then they will lose their identity, and another like the loss of Pang and Pangao. These were rising in the headlines in recent news. The place and its identity are disintegrating as a result of their tradition. To continue this tradition, the people of this village are in need of proper management and strategies. We discovered that the underlying issues with this vanishing craft is not what the locals claim. They couldn't compete with the plastic items that are found in the market. So because of all of these items are handcrafted, they require time and also have a lack of finishing. However, we discovered that the people there are uninterested since they continue to use the same old method of creating pang and have not attempted to explore new ways of manufacturing them with more easier and simpler form. And some like such as employing with new equipment and methods they use to create pangs without any measurements. So we held a workshop there to optimize the manufacturing process. We presented them to process of like market research, sketches, measurements of the products that they design, paper prototyping, finishing, and also waste management. And the items they should avoid in the process as a result in these sessions. So the workshop encouraged the Pangong people to learn more about the bamboo craft than the pang they have been making, that's the container. Some people practice crafts, but they are limited in their exposure and are only exposed to their consumers. Nobody knows about Pangong. Instead, they know about the nearby community called Chapagong, a near settlement. They haven't been exposed to it. Many of the Nepali, they haven't been exposed even. As a result, we held an exhibition in the village to promote local artisan and the community as a whole, with a particular focus on women and the people, as well as the raise of public knowledge of the old village itself. So with this project, we are trying to solve the problem of redefining identity and making the market visible and valuable. People with skill are there, market is there. If we introduce the right product in the right audience for this, so we are working on developing their traditional business and modern skill in order to match the demand of today's market. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really good. And I think I want to kind of pose a similar question to Dao, but I thought it was rather interesting how you said it's not about products, but you put it as that you're doing a systems change. So would you like to maybe expand on that a little bit? So you work with quite a few different communities of artisans, as you said, the pottery makers, the woodworkers who make the lid, and then 4 different communities. So how do you challenge their thinking, and how does your project go from product to a system change? I don't know where they are.
So is this Diraj? Diraj, are you there? So in the film you saw the pang that Alina was just talking about was the bamboo container. And then Diraj is going to tell us about the ceramic. They were kind of in your hand bowls and they were turned. So Diraj, over to you. Tell us about the systems thinking that you've got going on with locally produced yogurt.
So should I talk about the system again?
Would you like to again?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd like to listen to the question again.
Yes. Okay. Right. So I think we were rather interested in the fact that you're not just simply making a product, but you're thinking about the systems as a whole. So maybe you could explain that a little bit.
So initially, like it started like a product because I'm primarily a designer. The obvious thing for me to design was the packaging design solution for this problem. And but as I dived deeper, I looked at like different communities and their potential contribution like that could be given to this product. It grew to be a system. So there were people who had lost their jobs because of plastic pots. The pottery makers had lost their jobs, and they are yogurt makers, like they are like cornered by these bigger industrial yogurt makers to lower their prices. So which left the yogurt makers with 2 main ingredients, milk and table sugar. So then it was not just about designing the terracotta pots, but it was about rejuvenating what it means to create and consume this yogurt from the city. And like this is something that that the system is trying to bring everything under one brand and try to make that as DAO. So even like we even brought the weavers who would weave the secondary packaging for this pot. Like it's literally a thread with some knots which would hold like 2 pots which would weigh like 4 kg, And even when we are designing terracotta pots, we are testing like different kind of terracotta. Some are much more robust and porous, and one that we have used is much more soft, but yet it's very rigid, and it can be reused for 8 to 10 times. So the design is able to take like 3 times more vertical force than the traditional design, yet it is much more lighter and has much more function from stackability to its handling. And we brought the woodworkers who would make lid for these pots for security and protection of the yogurt, plus the functional spoon that is attached to the smaller pots. And we are also currently exploring like how we can take this handcraft along with technological thing like CNC cutting and lasers. And we are like something different that we have done is like we are using electric kilns to bake the pots instead of traditional baking with wooden straws, which would create a lot of smokes and pollutants. And in electric kilns, like the temperature could be controlled and all the pots are very uniform in its finish. And in terms of yogurt, like currently people use butane gas to boil milk, but we're exploring like what if it could be done by electricity too? And what if we can invest or partner with delivery services based in electric vehicles, right? So we can make better products than before, which is much more sustainable. Its carbon footprint is gonna be much more lower. And it's not about redeeming traditional practices, but improving upon them to make them ready for future.
I think I was just going to say, I think Diraj kind of pulls up quite a key point there that kind of came up through the program, particularly because of your involvement, Inga, and the mentors are kind of going through this idea of data and how do we, how are we using the data to kind of inform, like Diraj is saying, those, those kind of improvements, those, or like Alina was saying, that kind of almost like streamlining and refinement. And I just wondered, do you want to say a bit about kind of that data feedback loop for designers, not in terms of how do you do it, but why it's important?
Yeah, and I think that's a theme we're going to pick up later on today as well, in terms of when we think about a circular economy model, is where are the pressure points in terms of data? What is it that we know about our materials and what is it that we don't know, and who's the knowledge, and where in the supply chain is that data, and who has the data, and can it be made public, can it be made transparent? And so that transparency of the supply chain is a massive issue when it comes when it comes to a circular economy, and particularly when it comes to making practices, any kind of creative business that deals with materials, whether that's the crafts, whether that's design or architecture. We're all very material intensive creative practices. So thinking about where materials come from and what they stand for, where they, the cradle to cradle approach of materials is really important. And what I really liked about the DAO project was actually that they're kind of going right back to basics. It started with this idea around yogurt and wanting to put it in, not in a plastic pot, but celebrating this locally made, artisanally made yogurt as a, and as we know, the kind of craft beers and locally produced food is a massive thing. It's part of our climate solutions. It's sourcing local food. But then equally, how do you present that food to your local market? How do you add value to those things that are locally produced, by thinking about the packaging and how's the packaging produced? So kind of systematically going through all those steps, I think it's a really it's been really interesting to watch, and how those communities that contribute their own expertise, whether it's the knowledge of how clay behaves and how it reacts in the firing, or how the twine is put together to make the ropes that carry these things. So that kind of material knowledge and kind of bringing those different expertises together, I think is what a lot of these projects rely on. And I'm wondering if we maybe have time for one more question.
I was going to maybe, because I just think what you were talking about there about the kind of the data can be qualitative as well as quantitative. It's not about, the numbers game and, everything we're trying to do to keep to 1.5, but it could be qualitative. And Tekka, you guys have been, as I understand it, kind of doing a lot of data gathering around the community, around the material. And I also think, we've got a different approach to you in that, from what we've heard already about material, about using, as you said in the film, the agro waste. And I wondered whether you could tell us a bit more about how that visibility of agro waste informed the project that you're doing to look at these the kind of developing the sanitary pads. And I wondered whether you could also talk about the role that young people might play in that, whether it's about the production but also the consumption, and why that has the potential to have such a big impact. Quite a big question, sorry.
Thank you for the question. Namaste everyone. I am Sailaja Kasujo. I'm a community development worker, and Tekka from its start, it has been working with nature-based materials to train and empower women in Nepal. And while I was working in Nawalparasi, we discovered that banana farming is widely practiced all over Nepal, and it is one of the valued crop. But unfortunately, after the fruit is ripped, after the trees, the stumps, everything is considered an agro waste and it is discarded. While we were also doing the study, the local women in the Tarai region were socially discriminated and they did not have their voice. So we brainstormed about what we could do and try to solve both of these problems simultaneously. So we started processing banana stumps, and we turned it into natural fiber. And we trained the women to make utilize these fiber to make craft. We started making coasters, mats, table runner, blind, even made textiles. And this was helping to mitigate environment problems, as well as it was providing employment to the women, and they were getting recognized. They were they were being celebrated by the family. But once the lockdown hit, we could not, after the lockdown we were closed for almost 2 years, and we could not actually give employment to them, which actually impacted. So this got us to much more deeper thinking, like what we reflected in the lives of the women directly, and and we started looking at what kind of problems they were facing. One of the major problem was the menstruation. Menstruation is considered a taboo in Nepal, so a lot of women were they were facing menstrual problems while they were actually having periods. So we started researching on that, and we thought, why not to use the same material that they are working with to produce sanitary pads. So that is how we came into this conclusion of making biodegradable banana fiber sanitary pads. Talking about the youths are like the building block of the community, and they shape the world, and they play a very important role. And youth youth also play a very important role to bring about a social change in the society. Along with the production of sanitary pad, we are also carrying out awareness programs. It's not just an awareness program, it's kind of an advocacy program for youth. We are carrying out these programs in school, colleges, like social clubs and all, where we talk about menstruation, where we talk about wash programs, and where we talk about what kind of what happens in your body, so that we can mitigate this overall construct of a social taboo. So we are trying to educate and aware the youth to express themselves, to have an opportunity of their voice to come out and say that it is okay, and menstruation is a social biological process. Besides the education and social aspects of it, we also try to promote our sanitary pad, which is a green solution. So initially in the video, you saw that half of the population of Nepal is women, and they are using sanitary pad, which is causing pad pollution. So we try to ask them to opt to a greener solution, either by using the biodegradable sanitary pad or by using reusable sanitary pads. And while we conduct these kind of awareness and advocacy programs, we also donate reusable sanitary pad, which has a shelf life of 1 to 5 years, so that it could be used for a longer run.
I think what you've said there, and similar to kind of DAO, is creating that it's a very holistic approach, exactly as you said, with that kind of learning and awareness raising. And I so wish all of you could be here in this building, because there's so much of that going on in this building, particularly around the youth program, the advocacy, the learning, the kind of all the different approaches. Have we got time for one more, Inga? Go on.
Well, I was thinking if the room has a question that you wanted to ask, then you could probably have time for one more. Anyone has a question? Go on, Ruth.
Anyone else does? It's just one there's quite a lot of designers in the room, young product designers, and the traditional way we educate young product designers is global markets and mass market. And I wondered if there was any advice from Nepal about what our young designers should be thinking about in terms of new products that they could develop.
Okay, did everybody hear that question on the call? So about advice from our Nepali entrepreneurs, our grantees, about working in local and global markets for designers. So we're talking designer to designer. Anybody? We can only see Teko. Is anyone else? Okay, great. Or even our colleagues at Kathmandu University, they'd be welcomed, because they're all in the arts and design department. So
can you repeat the question, please?
We didn't actually get the question properly.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question was from Ruth Corcoran, who's organizing the program here today, and she's a product design lecturer at Napier University alongside Inga. And she was just saying, we've got a lot of designers in the room, and are there is there any advice or experiences that our Nepali colleagues would like to share around, that idea of, kind of going global, but also thinking local? How do we shift that paradigm about, kind of producing and exporting? What's the shift to be made? How do we do it?
This shape. So, hello. This is okay. So this is me, Kirti. Namaste again. This is ma कुरा गरौँ. हुन्छ. So I'm speaking in Nepali, okay? यो कन्टेक्स्टमा यो जुन यो दुईटा फरक कल्चर भएको, दुईटा फरक भौगोलिक अवस्था भएको देशहरू बीचमा काम गर्ने तौर तरिका शेयर गर्ने एउटा माध्यमको रूपमा पनि आइरहेछ। तर हाम्रो नेपालको कन्टेक्स्टमा लाई चाहिँ अब ग्लोबल कन्टेक्स्टमा डिजाइन वाइज अथवा प्रोडक्ट वाइज अथवा कुनै पनि सर्भिसहरूलाई चाहिँ नि लिएर जाँदाखेरि के कस्तो कुरामा ध्यान दिनुपर्छ, के चीजहरुमा रेस्पोन्सिबल हुनुपर्छ भन्ने कुरालाई चाहिँ कनेक्ट गर्ने ठुलो यो हाम्रो अपर्चुनिटीको रूपमा पनि यो चीज अगाडि आइरहेको छ जस्तो मलाई लागिरहेछ। Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Unfortunately, we don't have the translation in the room, so I'm just wondering whether
I can translate. So, yeah, so you were just talking about, more than a challenge, that you can also look at it as an opportunity. So you talked about how this project between two countries, between Nepal and UK, with very distinct contexts when it comes to craft traditions, there was that interaction. So I think what he was proposing is to just shift the conversation and say that was also an opportunity to really think about how design can play a role. And maybe I think Desheb would like to add something, because Kriti sir has just talked about the opportunity to think about these things, and that came from this platform. You teach design to students at KU, so would you like to also add something? I've already translated what Kriti has already said.
Thank you, Nishal.
Desheb, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Nishal. I just wanted to recall the question so that I could also add to what Kirti sir suggested.
Oh, so we were just asking about, Desheb, we were talking about advice for young designers here in the UK, or, those that are maybe older and second careers, it doesn't matter. It's that idea of, I think Kirti was picking up on that, what are the challenges and the opportunities around local and global markets, and trying to break that paradigm about making, producing growth and exporting. How do we shift that thinking?
So what we do experience in Nepal is that there's a big disconnect with, as I think what Nishal also suggested in the beginning, is that we consider handicraft products to be just the craft products, handicraft products to be craft products. And the market for these products has shifted to a lot of exporting of these products, because they become sort of like collectible products and sort of ornamental products, whereas the heritage of these products has been of very local everyday use. So I think what opportunity lies in this modern context, and what these different projects have also been doing, is going back into our own communities and finding things that are being done, that were being done before, and how those things changed because of shift in lifestyles and this globalization that brought about a lot of new products and new technologies that came in. But I think we're at a stage where we can not just take whatever is being thrown globally, but also take opportunity from technology that is available throughout the world, and sort of mix that up with whatever indigenous knowledge that we have from our ancestors, and try to make more sustainable choices for whatever we're making. So I think in terms of learning through this global experience, that can happen a lot. I guess just that.
I think that's a brilliant actually point maybe to finish up on, because I think you're making reference to that generational thinking, particularly around that 7th generation thinking, cathedral scale, which is kind of coming up, and how we kind of learn. And I think you would also that idea of distribution. And I think for us as an organization that represents makers in Scotland, and to work with partners overseas, it is about how we exchange knowledge and skill, but we're not exporting stuff, we're not exchanging stuff, we're building that global community with kind of local values but shared global values. And there's loads of examples out there around that, and Crafting Futures assists us with that. So thank you. I'm going to hand over to you now.
Brilliant. No, I think, Desheb, thank you for summing that up beautifully. I think that really sums up the essence of what the learning has been, and what we'd like to take forward. So yeah, thank you for your beautiful words. So just to kind of sum up and say a massive thank you to our Nepali grantees and to our Kathmandu partners, the Kathmandu University partners, and to Michelle at the British Council, and obviously to Applied Arts Scotland, Helen, and to Lynn Opinat-Dean. So yeah, a massive thank you. I hope you will join us for further conversations around material, that kind of embodied knowledge of materials, and how we can bring those traditional skills and traditional knowledge bases together with contemporary thinking and design sensibilities, as Dishev has already alluded to. So more of that later. Rest is to say a massive thank you and goodbye. Namaste.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
You sticking around, Lynn?
Stuck in the middle there.